The gag order that was reinstated, a lower appeals court, an appeals court, reinstated that gag order, very limited, put together by Manhattan Supreme Court Judge Arthur Engoron, a very limited gag order last week. And Trump appealed the gag order. Getting confused here. My mind is still on Christian Ziegler. Oh, Jesus. Trump appealed the gag order, and the appeals court said, sit down and shut the fuck up, and reapplied the gag order that was suspended while the orange bastard appealed. And now that the appeals court, the appellate court in Florida, in New York. Come on, Mike, get it right. Now that the appeals court has ruled that the gag order is to be reinstated, now they're going to go to New York's highest court, the Supreme Court in New York. No, they don't call it the Supreme Court of New York. Here's what it says on the Hill. Trump's legal team on Monday today asked permission from the Intermediate Appeals Court, the one that ruled against them, to bring their argument to the Court of Appeals, New York's highest court. And of course, the mid-level appeals court, it's kind of confusing. You know, to me, it's always a circuit court, then appeals court, then a Supreme Court, and works its way up, but not in New York. Anyway, one of Trump's fake attorneys, actually it's one for Trump's bastard sons, probably Trump Jr., and other people that are parties in this case. That attorney, Clifford Robert, in the request for a higher court to review it in the state of New York, he wrote this, quote, without expedited review, petitioners, that's the Trump scum, will continue to suffer irreparable injury daily as they are silenced on matters implicating the appearance of bias and impropriety on the bench during a trial of immense stakes, end quote. And a few hamburgers probably too, right? Now, so far, the Orange Bastards' attacks have primarily targeted Judge Engoron's law clerk because they talk to each other. You know, they do what law clerks and judges do during a trial where there is no jury. It's just the judge, who has already, by the way, declared this pig guilty and his whole rotten family guilty. We have to keep in mind that this trial is only about the degree to which the Trump scum will have to pay for their crimes and sins and shitty behavior, right? And you remember some of the stuff leveled by the orange bastard against the judge was that the judge's clerk, who sits by him, and Senate Majority Leader Chuck Schumer are boyfriend and girlfriend. Boyfriend and girlfriend. You're talking about people in their 60s or 70s. I'm your girlfriend. I'm your boyfriend. And when the orange bastard put that on his fake little social platform, he included personally identifying information about the clerk. Now, a spokesman for Chuck Schumer called the post, quote, ridiculous, absurd, and false at the time. Yeah, I would think so. Oh, my God. So anyway, that post, that attack against Judge Engoron's clerk, is what sparked the limited gag order. And since then, Trump has racked up chump change, pocket change for this filthy pig, $15,000 in fines for various violations. And the order was also expanded then to include remarks by Trump's phony attorneys about the clerk before it was appealed. And now it's been appealed by a lower appellate court, and it's been determined that the gag order is to be replaced. Now it's going to go to the New York Court of Appeals, that state's highest court. They don't call it New York Supreme Court, I guess. Now, the clerk, and I think this is true, but what do I know? This is true in so many cases where the entire thing is being heard by the judge, and one in which the judge has already ruled that they're guilty. But the clerk sometimes plays an active role in a trial like this, where the judge is hearing all the evidence and making the decision. And the clerk passes notes to and whispers with the judge. And the orange bastard and his fake lawyers say that the clerk acts as a, quote, co-judge in the case. Right. Sure. Okay. And Judge Gorin has said, and this is true, although it may sound a tad arrogant, but it is true. He said he can run his court any way he pleases. Well, that's the way our judicial system is set up. That's what Trump is going to destroy. Now, last month, if you remember, the orange bastards' fake lawyers tried to get a mistrial. And their claim was that Judge Gorin and his clerk, their word, tainted the trial with bias against Trump. There's no jury to taint, you crazy son of a bitches. But this is what they do. They use this kind of language, which opens the gate, you might say, to bring their little bullshit plea before an appeals court. And Judge Gorin denied that motion that the judge and his clerk had tainted I can't stand it. The trial. And Gorin denied the motion. He called it, quote, utterly without merit. And he's probably thinking, why don't you sit down and shut the fuck up? I'm going to fine you every dime I can, but let's go on with this charade, all right? But he didn't say that. And Gorin did tell Trump repeatedly and his fake lawyers that attacks on his staff are, quote, not appropriate, and that they won't be tolerated, quote, under any circumstances. Well, Judge, I mean, he's already, he's already, now that he has requested, the orange bastard has requested through his fake attorneys to be heard, this whole mess to be heard by the appeals court of New York. I'm sure that will result in another temporary stay. And Trump, of course, doesn't give a shit about stays or any kind of legal action to make him shut the fuck up because he's Donald Trump. You see, in his mind, he can do whatever he wants to. An injunction, he eats injunctions for breakfast, among other things, right? Hi, Truth Seekers. Mike Malloy here. You know, the Progressive Voices Network brings you commercial-free commentary from today's leading progressive radio hosts and pundits, like me, Mike Malloy, 24 hours a day. I'm not your typical old guy from the 80s or the 90s talk radio host, and Progressive Voices is not your typical talk radio network. It's a listener-supported nonprofit with no corporate control whatsoever over our broadcast. So hosts like me, Mike Malloy, are free to rant and scream and carry on about whatever we like. We're often controversial, but we're never boring. Weeknights, 9 p.m. in the East, 6 p.m. in the West on the Progressive Voices Network. Always progressive, always on. I'm Mike Malloy. Keep it lit.